Hello, welcome back to the conservatory. Well, we're getting there with the stripping down. Really all that's left to do is what we're going to do today, which is remove the shock absorber and remove the swing arm. And then it's really just a case of taking the frame off the engine, which I will probably do in the next episode. So, when it comes to removing the swing arm and the various linkage bolts, we're probably going to find that a lot of these bolts are torqued up to quite high values. They're going to be beyond the standard contents of the Clark toolkit, so I've bought some extra tools in. And also, on the swing arm, we've got this special castellated nut that we're going to have to use a special socket for, so I've got one of those as well. But I'll talk about each of these tools as we come round to them. So, the first thing we're going to do is loosen off the shock absorber bolts. I don't want to take them off just yet because whilst they're in place they hold the swing arm in the right place to gain access through some of these holes to some of the linkage bolts. So we'll just loosen everything off to start off with and then we'll start the removal. So let's start with the bottom mount for the shock absorber. So we're going to need a 14mm spanner and a 14mm socket and an extension. That one loose, and then up here it's actually a special shouldered bolt that takes an 8mm Allen key on one side and a 14mm spanner on the other. Again, not too bad. That nut is looking a little bit chewed up, as is so often the case with these Japanese bolts. Japanese bolts and nuts are a bit unusual in that they actually use a 10mm fine thread rather than standard thread, and they also use a 14mm nut, whereas conventional would be a 17. Makes it a bit of a pain in the arse getting hold of replacement nuts and bolts if you want to keep things all original. Very often there is actually room to put a 17mm nut on, which you can get standard from most nut and bolt places. Just make sure you ask for an M10 fine rather than an M10. The pitch on the thread is different. On a standard M10 it's 1.5mm between each thread, whereas on the fine it's only 1.25mm. So we've loosened off the shock absorber, and now we're going to do this linkage here. Obviously, I could try the Allen key, but I can't really get enough force on it. So the standard Clark toolkit does actually come with a 1/4" drive adapter to take sockets like that, and obviously it's going to be an 8mm thread, which it doesn't go up to. So I've actually got my other set of Allen sockets here, so we're going to use one of those. So we're going to go straight in with the 8mm and 1/2" drive. Now that isn't going anywhere, and I think if we try and force it, we're just going to end up chewing the end of the head. In fact, it feels like someone's already made a little bit of a mess of that. So, rather than struggle, we're going to resort to using the impact driver. And here we have the impact driver. It took me years to get one of these. And once I got it, I wondered how I ever survived without it. And even that is struggling. So we may have to look at alternative ways of getting that one out. So in the meantime, now that I've deafened everyone, let's carry on removing the rest of the linkage. So this one down the bottom is an example where someone's replaced a Japanese bolt with a standard European bolt because it's 17mm. So you undo the bolt and then the actual linkage . Should come out from the other side. Now this one's stuck, so what I'm going to do is just screw the bolt on a couple of turns so that when we hit it, we're actually hitting the nut rather than the end of the bolt and not damaging the thread. And there is the Allen bolt. As usual, I've got a little Ziploc bag here for putting everything in. And that's that removed. Now we'll have a look at loosening off the special nut for the swing arm spindle. So you actually need a special socket. It looks like this. Now, it is tempting, I know, just to get a screwdriver or a punch and a hammer and try and punch that, use that, but like that to undo it. Just don't. You'll damage the screwdriver, you'll damage the nut, and you're going to need one of these tools to put it all back together again afterwards. Now, you can get these off eBay or Amazon, and they come in two types. There's the plain one like this, and then there is another type that has a bit welded on that takes the drive, a bit like this one in the photograph. And really it's the latter type you want. Unfortunately I only discovered that after I bought this, but I've had it a couple of years and it works on all sorts of other bikes. You can pick them up. This type is about £15, the other type is about £25. Worth getting because, like I said, it will fit all sorts of other bikes in the future, so worth investing in. That actually came off without too much trouble. of course, by using the correct tool, this is safe and ready for us to reuse on another day. Going to go around to the other side, and there's a nut on the other side. It's all a very overly complicated system, this, but I guess the idea is so that you preload the bearings. Seems to be unique to these sort of sports bikes. Again, another socket that didn't come in the kit, and that's the 27mm socket that we used on the rear axle. And you can see it's a big old bolt. And then finally we need to unscrew the spindle. Now inside here is a 14mm Allen key. Now even my other set doesn't go up to 14mm. So what I've done is taken an old Japanese 10mm bolt and I've welded another nut onto the back of it. So that's a 17mm nut welded onto a 14mm headed bolt. And that works just fine. You can take a bolt and just put two nuts, lock them together, or of course you could just go out and buy a 14mm Allen socket, but there we go. And that seemed to work fine. Right. Let's take everything off. Expect it all to come crashing down. So I'm going to carry on with the bottom shock mount because it's the least accessible. And you need to lift the swing arm up so it comes out through this hole here. See, as soon as we remove it, the swing arm just drops right out the way. And there we have one shock absorber. Now, this is the standard shock. They're okay. Problem is they're not adjustable other than the preload at the bottom. So there are various options for improving the shock. Graham France, for instance, does a kit where he uses a later CBR400 shock and a modified linkage. That works quite well and isn't too expensive for what it is. The other option, of course, is you can go out and buy an aftermarket shock, which is going to cost you somewhere in the region of about £400 to £500. However, this being a budget track bike, we're going to look at this shock in a bit more detail and see if we can rebuild it. Judging by the sticker on it, it has obviously been rebuilt in the past, and this little piece here is not standard. This is actually a filler valve for pressurising it. So it's obviously been apart and rebuilt at some point in the past. But we'll look into that in a bit more detail later. Okay. That's the swing arm out. And there's your preload adjuster. Again, we'll have a look at that a bit later on. So, I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do about this, but as there's a good chance we'll be replacing the swing arm and the linkage at a later date, I'm not going to worry about that too much. I might even actually have to cut through the bush with an angle grinder just to take it out. But before I do that, I'm going to get some penetrating fluid, pour it down there and leave this to soak for a couple of days. Keep adding some more penetrating fluid, keep soaking it, and hopefully it will loosen up enough that we can take it all apart. I want to examine the bearings, see if we need to replace those, and yeah, definitely clean up the chain slider. But like I said, may reuse this swing arm and this linkage, may steal the one off the other frame out the back there. I have to say, it all feels pretty good. So, move that out of the way. Okay, so we're back again after an unscheduled tea break and camera recharge. And I know I said we were going to wait until the next video to remove the frame from the engine, but I kind of thought, I've got all the tools out, I've got this here, and it didn't actually take that long to film removing the swing arm, so we might as well carry on. Before I can remove the frame from the engine, I would like to just take the front yokes out whilst it's all relatively stable on the trolley. So we're going to start with that. Now, just like the swing arm, we are going to need some extra tools. So the top nut here actually requires a 30mm socket, so I'll grab one of those out of the garage. This is one of those situations where you could use an adjustable spanner, and to be honest, I really wish in that Clark toolkit they'd given us an decent sized adjustable spanner rather than that silly plumber's wrench thing. So we'll start with that and the 30mm socket. So here we go. So the 30mm socket I've got out the garage. It's 1/2 inch drive, just like all the rest of the stuff. So we can take that's it. You shouldn't really beat the socket, but unfortunately everything was moving around, so I didn't have much choice. Of course, I did put locking casters on this trolley, so with hindsight I should have just locked them. But there we go. So that's the top yoke off, and we're going to modify this a bit later on. And then here's the other tool we need, and it's another special castellated socket, just like the one we used for the swing arm, but a bit bigger. Now you could use a screwdriver or a punch even, and a hammer to remove these, but to be honest, that tool just makes life so much easier and does a better job of re-torquing everything up. Now there is a locking washer. It's got 2 tabs that go into the bottom washer and 2 tabs that go into the top. Now the only way to remove them is to use a screwdriver. Just gently open it up. I can get the screwdriver in. Oops, and that one broke, so we're going to have to get a new one of those. It's obviously been used or reused a fair few times. Actually, that's only finger tight. Yeah, in fact, it's definitely in need of replacing. You can see that. See, those have been bent up and down quite a few times. So we'll get a new one of those. looser than I was expecting. There's the collar. And as you can see, at some point someone has replaced the original bearings with a set of taper roller bearings. Don't actually look to have that much wear on them. But anyway, that's all academic, seeing as we're using a different frame. And again, the bottom yoke, I'm going to look at making a few little changes to that, just to get rid of some unnecessary weight. Okay, now for the big moment. Let's remove the frame. So, the frame's attached at 4 points. There's a long bolt at the bottom, the engine just here, one in the middle of the engine, and then you've got 2 bolts either side that go into the cylinder head, and the 2 bottom bolts. So, I'm going to start with the bottom bolts. Oh, this is seamless, isn't it? Here we go. Right, so start with the bottom bolts and take it from there. So these should be 14. Now obviously these crash bungs aren't standard fitting. But we'll be reusing them. I know they've got a bit of scuffing, but they're perfectly adequate. Now, when you undo the bolts on the right hand side here, there are a couple of little washers that will drop out very shortly. So let's move over to the left hand side, loosen off the bolts there, which don't have the washers, and then we'll come back to those. On the right hand side there's the little clip that holds the radiator in place, and then they've got a spacer in just to make it easier to get to the bolt and clear the radiator hose clip. Okay. There's one top bolt. And there's the washer I was telling you about, little spacer. They're quite handy, they're teardrop shaped, the idea being you can hold the teardrop part to insert them rather than waggling around a normal washer. There's the front engine mounts off, and now it's just the rear. So the bolt at the rear is actually recessed. I'm going to need to use the socket on the actual bolt rather than on the nut, which is what you would conventionally do. but by no means least, the top mount. Right. Again, ideally you need 2 sockets. You can just get the spanner in to access the nut. Okay, now the rear, all the spaces are on the left hand side rather than on the right hand side. And obviously all of this is going to get a good clean once we're done. We're given a little coating of copper grease to stop them seizing, which is good. They're out. And I have to say, taking the frame off the top of the engine is certainly a lot easier than dropping the engine out the bottom of the frame. So, one frame all removed, and one engine free for us to look at. So that's the dismantling all complete. Obviously we've done a bit of rebuilding while we were at it, but now starts the fun bit. Rebuilding stuff and modifying stuff and then putting it all back together again. The engine I'm not going to do a lot to. I know it was a good running engine, but the one thing we will look at while the engine is like this is I'll do a quick video on checking the valve clearances. I'll also give everything a damn good clean up while we're at it. There's a fair bit of dirt and grot that's accumulated on it over time. So yeah, so the first job I think is going to be to give everything a clean, which I won't bother filming because that's all boring. So we give everything a clean and then we'll come back, and I suspect the next video will be a how-to on valve clearances. So until then, thanks for watching, look after yourselves, I hope you're all surviving the coronavirus okay, and like myself, keeping yourself busy in the shed in the meantime. So until the next video, thanks for watching, goodbye.